I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. This month, we gather to celebrate the achievements and greatness of our African American citizens throughout our history and from all walks of life.
Welcome to you all. It's my great honor to introduce our 2 speakers. So without further ado or verbiage from me, let me welcome our 2 distinguished guests to the stand for our on the history of civil rights and where we're going in 2012. Thank you.
I have worn so many winters out and know not what to call myself. So I thought it might be interesting to look at the dozen or so public names that people of sub-Saharan African ancestry have called themselves in the United States over the last 200 years. As late as 1890, the census of the United States had 4 different categories. One was Negro, right, for someone who was a full Negro. Mulatto, someone like President Obama would have been classified as a mulatto, that is, a person who had 1 white parent and 1 black parent. If Barack Obama had married someone white and they'd had a child, that child would have been called a quadroon and listed that way in the census. And if that white child, continuing in the family pattern, had married someone white and had a child, that child would have been called an octoroon, 1/8 part. Now, we don't use these terms anymore. And Negro was the polite word. This was the word we were taught to use in school, Negro with a capital N. Okay. So we switched from Negro, which was no longer kosher, as we say, to black, which was okay. In the 80s or so, sometimes the term people of color was talked about. And then Henry Gates, who teaches African American studies at Harvard, wrote a memoir which he called Colored People. And he said, I like the term colored people because that's what my grandmother said. And when I was growing up, colored was a perfectly okay word. You know, this colored guy, that was fine. And then in the 90s, we have a radical departure, a rap group known as NWA. Does anybody know what NWA? Yes, here, Brother Johnson, yes. Well, they brought a word into the language which is sometimes, a professor of Harvard, Randall Kennedy, wrote a book in 2002 called Nigger, the strange history of a troublesome word. Dick Gregory, who used humor during the Civil Rights Movement, confronted this very, very nasty word. I mean, in the mouth of white people, it's still a very nasty word. Not in this context, since this is a scientific context. I'm using the word with quotation marks around it. But the word, when this group, niggers with attitude, and of course, they're not just niggers, they're niggers with attitude. And attitude means, it's sort of like a chip on your shoulder. I mean, you're aggressive. This is not, humble. And so this word, of course, had come into usage, and Professor Kennedy's book tries to deal with the various nuanced usages of this word. But of course, today in normal academic environment, African American is used. If I were to give a talk at an American university and say Negroes, how would people react?
Not well.
Not good. I'd say, well, I would say half the prison population in the United States is Negro. The search for a term that doesn't have negative connotations. And of course, for someone my age, Negro doesn't have any negative connotations. For Martin Luther King, it was the polite word. But people of African ancestry, even during slavery time, used some humor as a form of psychological defense. And these were stories or jokes that they told among themselves. One where he goes into a restaurant and the waitress says to him, "We don't serve Negroes." And he says, "Oh, that's all right, I don't eat them." No matter what you accomplished, you still had this category thrust on you. And so he told us one joke, which is an in-joke, and again, may not be funny to many of you. This first-class compartment of an airplane. and there's this woman sitting there, and this black man comes in. He's wearing a Brooks Brothers shirt, Brooks Brothers suit, right? And very expensive shirt, and a narrow tie, gold cufflinks, gold eyeglasses. Takes his Wall Street Journal out of his alligator leather briefcase, right? And this woman, she's getting more and more agitated, and finally she can't hold it in anymore. And she starts yelling, "Nigger, nigger!" And he jumps up and says, "Where? Where?"
Yeah.